Hello friends and welcome to DigiMento. So today we will be continuing our discussion on policies, governance and administration. So till now we were discussing about fundamental rights and sources of our constitution, preamble, etc. So the topics that we have already covered, the sources of our constitution, then we discussed about our preamble, then also we discussed about the fundamental rights. So today we will start with DPSPs, that is Directive Principles of State Policies. So if you are attending the class now, please let me know. If you are in the live session, please let me know. Okay. Yeah. So we will quickly start. Okay. Now one more thing. Before that, what I want to tell you is regarding the examination. The exams have been postponed. I hope you are already aware about it. So the computer science examination, it is postponed for 11th of November 2020 from 7th of October. So it was supposed to happen on 7th of October. Now it is postponed to 11th of November. Now, second thing is that the electronic sciences examination, the date is not postponed. It will be held on 5th of November. So the new update has been made on the NTA website today. We have already made a video on that, very short video, some 3 minutes, where I have given you the details about it. So beware of this thing. So please also make sure that you frequently visit the website of NTA, because what is being noticed these days, there are changes, and also there is a possibility that the admit cards will also get released very soon. So considering all that facts, I will highly recommend you to go through the website maybe at least once in 2-3 days, so that you will know any updates. Whatever updates is there, definitely I will, or other members of the team will bring it before you. But still, make sure that you are also updating yourself. Okay. So this was regarding the postponement of the dates. So the exams is postponed for 11th of November 2020. So let's quickly start. Okay. Before that, Malati, good evening. Rani, good evening. Aparna, hi Aparna. Sorry. Guruji, world with competitor. Hello, good evening. Aparna, thank you. You're welcome, Aparna. Lipika, hi. Rani, yes, watch the video. Thanks a lot. You're welcome, Rani. Pooja, good evening. Gunjan, good evening. Hi, good evening, everyone. So let's quickly go through the today's topics now. So let's start. Before that, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel, and also please press the bell icon for receiving the notification. So please subscribe and press the bell icon. And if you are preparing for GATE, NTA, UGC NET or PGT Computer Science, we are providing the online courses. So online courses will be provided, and for more details you can visit our website. This is our website, www.digimento.com. So our website is www.digimento.com, or you can call to this number for getting more information about the online courses that we provide. And Malati, ma'am, this is my first session. So welcome Malati, and I hope you will enjoy the classes. So I'm very glad to meet you, and all of us are very happy to have you in this group. So hi and welcome Malti. I hope you will have a very good experience with us. So let's start. Okay, so we were discussing about the constitution of our country. We discussed about the fundamental things, the basic facts. Then we also discussed about various sources of our constitution. Then we discussed about the preamble. Then we discussed about the fundamental rights. Now we have 6 fundamental rights. Earlier there was one more, that is right to property, which has been now taken away. So fundamental rights, first one is right to equality. Right to freedom is the second one. Right against exploitation. Right to freedom of religion, and cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedies. So these are the fundamental rights that we have. So we have discussed about the fundamental rights in detail. So I hope everything is clear for you, and if at all you have some doubts, any clarifications required, please let me know in the comment section so that we will take up the comments. Okay. So Joeta, hello Joeta. Malti, you're welcome, and Josephine, hi, good evening. So any doubts, if you have anything to be cleared, anything to be clarified, we will just take up it now, and then we will continue with the lectures. So if you have any kind of doubts or anything to be cleared, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move to DPSPs, or the Directive Principles of State Policy. Okay. So let's start with DPSPs, which are the Directive Principles of State Policy. So DPSP is mentioned in Part 4 of our Constitution from Articles 36 to 51. So Articles 36 to 51 under the Part 4 of the Constitution mentions about the DPSPs, or the Directive Principles of State Policies. Now, this provision of DPSPs, if you remember when we discussed about the sources of our Constitution, we said that the DPSPs are borrowed from the Constitution of Ireland. So we have borrowed the provision of DPSPs from Ireland, and Indian Constitution has not originally classified DPSPs, but on the basis of their content and direction, they are usually classified into 3 types. So originally, which means that during the enactment of the Constitution, we had DPSPs definitely, but they were not classified, or they were not categorized. But later on these DPSPs got mainly classified into 3 kind of DPSPs. So first one is the DPSPs which hold the socialistic principles. Second one is Gandhian principles. Third one is liberal intellectual principles. Now, from the word socialism itself, we know it gives an emphasis on equality. So equality, equal distribution of resources, etc. So equality, equal distribution of resources, etc. Now, Gandhian principles, we know what are the Gandhian principles. Non-violence is one Gandhian principle. Then cottage industries, cooperative societies, then grassroots level administration. So all these are the Gandhian principles. Then we have liberal intellectual principles, which means which focuses on liberty. So liberal principles. So originally, even though there were no classification or categorization of the DPSPs, the Directive Principles of State Policies, at a later stage what happened, the DPSPs got classified into 3 types. One is socialistic principles, second one is Gandhian principles, and the third one is liberal intellectual principles. Okay, so these are the 3 classifications. So we need not study so much detail about the DPSPs and all. So we will just see. This is all enough for DPSPs. Now we are coming to fundamental duties. So fundamental rights we have discussed. Fundamental rights are the basic rights of the individuals, and it is the responsibility of the state to deliver the citizens those fundamental rights. Similarly, we also have fundamental duties. So fundamental duties means it is a responsibility of the citizens towards the state. Now, regarding the DPSPs, the Directive Principles of State Policy, so they are not legally enforceable. Even the fundamental duties are not legally enforceable. Not legally enforceable. What does it mean? This means that fundamental duties or directive principles cannot be enforced by using law. So that is there. Now, Article 51A of the Constitution, in Part 4A of our Constitution, talks about the fundamental duties. Now, Article 51A and Part 4A, this was included in the Constitution by an amendment. Yesterday somebody was asking me about the amendment. So this is one very good example where the Constitution was amended. Constitution was amended, and it was in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act that the fundamental duties were added to the Constitution. So this means that originally when the Constitution was formed, when it was enacted, there was no provision for fundamental duties. So there was no provision for fundamental duties in the original Constitution, but in a later stage this was adopted through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. And the provision of fundamental duties, they are based on Japan Constitution. So Japan or Japanese model. So it is based on Japanese Constitution. So we have adopted this from Japan. There are 10 duties in the Indian Constitution, and this were included in the Indian Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. So that is what I said. Originally in the Constitution, there was no provision for fundamental duties, whereas this fundamental duties were added to the Constitution through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Also, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act is called Mini Constitution. Why? Because the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act has included many provisions and deleted several provisions. So 42nd Amendment Act is also called Mini Constitution. Lot of provisions were added and deleted during this 42nd Amendment. Now, as I said, the 10 duties in the Indian Constitution, which are the fundamental duties, they were added in the Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 on the basis of Swearing Committee. So this committee, this was the committee which recommended this fundamental duties to be added to the Constitution. Okay, so Swearing Committee. So yes, so the basic thing is that originally there was no fundamental right. I'll just write down. So originally there was no provision for fundamental rights, fundamental duties in the Constitution. Later this was added. Okay. Now, the 11th duty. So, if through the 42nd Amendment Act, 10 duties were added. Now, the 11th duty, fundamental duty, was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002. So, total, how many we have? 11 fundamental duties. So, it's a responsibility of the citizens towards the state. That is fundamental duties. Okay. Now, hi Arjun, good evening. So, any doubts? I'll just discuss the fundamental duties, but before that, any doubts from DPSPs or fundamental rights or fundamental duties? If you have any, let me know. So, let me know if you have any doubts. Okay, I think no. So shall we move on? Lal Siam Kima is asking me 42nd Amendment is called what? Okay, I'll just write it down one more time. Shall I erase all of this? Okay, so just writing it again. Hi Lab Singh, hi, hello. Okay, 42nd, I'll just write. So 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. CAA is not the other one, citizenship. It's a Constitutional Amendment Act here. So, yeah. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act is also called the Mini Constitution. So, this 42nd Constitutional Amendment was introduced by the Indira Gandhi government. Indira Gandhi government. And why it is called a mini constitution? The reason is that lot of changes were made through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So through this 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, there were addition of many provisions to the constitution and many existing provisions were taken away. And also another important thing is that during the in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, lot of subjects from the state list was taken and put into the concurrent list. Why? We know the reason, because if a subject is included in state list, only the state can legislate. Now, if it is in concurrent list, both state and union can legislate. Also, the union government's law will prevail. So, to give more powers to the center. Basically, the purpose of Indira Gandhi government through this 42nd Amendment Act was to give more powers to the central government, to make the central government more powerful. Okay. So, very important is 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So, it's called the mini constitution. Why? Because many provisions were added and many were deleted. So, Pooja saying that no doubts. So, anybody else having any doubts, we will clear it off and then move ahead. Let me know. Clear. Okay, let's continue now. Now, these are the list of fundamental duties. So, as I said, even though it's not very important for your exam, maybe you will not get direct questions from this or like by hearting this fundamental duties is not at all necessary for your exam, but still I think that as an informed citizen, you should be knowing about the duties. You should not only know your rights, but also you should be aware about the duties that you have towards the state or the country. First one is to abide by Indian Constitution and respect its ideals, institutions, national flag and the national anthem. So, to abide by the Indian Constitution, that means you have to follow the principles of Indian Constitution. You have to respect the ideologies and the institutions created under Indian Constitution. You have to respect the national flag, national anthem, etc. Second one is to cherish and follow the noble ideals of freedom struggle. So, the ideals of freedom struggle. So, what were the main ideals that we followed during our freedom struggle? Basically, the Gandhian principles of non-violence, then mass movement, peaceful protest. So, all these were some of the ideals that we followed during our freedom struggle. So, we have to cherish and follow the noble ideals of freedom struggle. Third one is to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of country. Sovereignty, unity and integrity. Now, sovereignty means that there is nothing above us or above the constitution, or there is a sovereignty. That means the external forces are not above the country. So, sovereignty is there. We have the power and the authority. Then next is unity. So, unity of the country. Next one is integrity. Integrity of India. Fourth one is to defend the country and render national service when required. So, you have to defend your country, and also whenever the state needs a service from you, you have to provide the service. Fifth one is to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood among all people of India, transcending religious, linguistic and regional or sectoral diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So, this is the fifth one. So, fifth one says that you have to work towards promoting harmony, the spirit of common brotherhood, that you must promote fraternity, the idea of brotherhood among all people of India, and your harmony and your brotherhood should be above religious, linguistic, regional or sectoral diversities or sectional diversities, which means you should promote harmony and cooperation or unity, spirit of brotherhood among yourself and with others, and it should not be based on religious grounds or linguistic grounds. It means you should not have a friendly approach only with the people who belongs to your religion or your linguistic community, etc. But across religion, across linguistic diversities, across regions, you should develop that feeling of brotherhood. And also you have to renounce, that means forgo all the practices which are derogatory to the dignity of women, whichever affects the dignity of women. Next is to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. You have to preserve the rich heritage. If you remember, in the pledge also we take an oath to preserve our varied culture and heritage. So in your school days you must have taken the pledge every day. So in the pledge you commit yourself to preserve our rich and varied heritage. Now next one is to protect and improve the national environment, including forest, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. So to improve the natural environment and protect the natural environment, and to develop or to have a compassion for all the living creatures. So being compassionate and preservation of natural environment is one of our fundamental duties. Next is to develop scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of enquiry and reform. So this is very important, to develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of enquiry and reform. Next is to safeguard the public property and to abjure violence. Safeguard the public property. You should safeguard the public property, because the public property, it belongs to the government, but who forms the government? It's formed by the people. So basically the public property means the property that are common for the public or the people. So we all own it. So you should safeguard the public property, the property of the state, which really belongs to the people. Next one is to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So next one is to strive towards excellence. Excellence in the individual level and in the collective level. That means as a group and as an individual you should strive towards excellence, and also to take the country to higher levels. Who is a parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward, as the case may be, between the age of 6 to 14 years. So now you may know the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, it has included this 11th fundamental duty. So this fundamental duty was introduced after the RT was introduced in India. RT is right to education. So under RT, between the ages 6 to 14 years, education is compulsory. So the 11th fundamental right was formed after the RT was passed in India, which says that the parents should provide opportunities for the children for their education between the age of 6 to 14 years. So these are the 11 fundamental duties for citizens. Now we will be coming to the Union Executive. So in the Union Executive we have the President, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So this is the Union Executive. So before we move into Union Executive, if you have any doubts, you can ask me now. Okay, we will clarify them and move ahead. Abhi Kumar, Dandi March. Yes, Dandi March is a very good example of a peaceful protest. Okay. Any doubts from the previous topics also? No doubts? Nothing? So shall we continue? If you don't have any doubts, shall we continue? Okay, let's continue. Now we are coming to the Union Executive. Okay. First, let us see what is the structure of the Union Executive. Union Executive. So Union Executive, okay, continue. Okay, Union Executive consists of, this is the structure of Union Executive. The President plus the Vice President plus the Prime Minister plus the Council of Ministers. So this is the composition and the structure of the Union Executive. So this is the Union Executive. Okay, no doubts, Pooja. Okay, good. So yeah, so let's come to the first and the most important authority of the Union Executive, which is the President of a country, of our country. So President is the head of the Indian state and the first citizen of India. So President is actually known as the first among the equals. So first among the equals. Okay, so he is the head of Indian state. Now head means he is the nominal head. So he is the nominal head of Indian state. Now Prime Minister is the real executive. So a President is the nominal executive, whereas the Prime Minister is the real executive. President is the head of the state, whereas Prime Minister is the head of the government. Okay. Abhi Kumar, role of President seems of no use, major role. I'll come to it, Abhi. Yes, I'll come to it. Now, the President can be removed from the office through a process called impeachment for the violation of the Constitution. So, this is the only ground in which a President can be removed. So, this is the only ground on which a President of a country can be removed. That is violation of the Constitution. If the President violates the Constitution, then the President can be removed from the office, and this process of removing the President from the office is called impeachment process. So impeachment process, I think we have already discussed about it. It's a very lengthy process. So first it has to be supported, impeachment motion has to be supported by at least 50 members in the house in which it is introduced. Then again it has to be passed in a particular house, and then again inquiry commission will be appointed. President will be given an opportunity to present himself. Then in both the houses of parliament, a special majority of 3/4 of the members present and voting is required. So all these things are very, very important. Okay. Now, President can be removed from the office by the process of impeachment and only on the grounds of violation of the Constitution. Now, the impeachment charges can be initiated by either house of the parliament, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Any of the house of the parliament can initiate the impeachment process, and these charges should be signed by 1/4 of the members of the house, and a 14 days notice should be given to the President. So this motion has to be signed by minimum 1/4 of the members of the house, and President shall be given a 14 days of notice period. Then impeachment by 2/3 of the majority of total membership of houses in both of the parliament. So impeachment can be done only if 2/3 of the total members and 3/4 of the present and voting votes against the President in the impeachment motion. So it's a very difficult thing to be passed in the parliament. So there are very less chances that the President can be impeached, and no President has ever been impeached from the office till now. Okay. So now I'll come to Abhi's question. Now, Abhi has asked me a very good question. So, the question is whether the role of President in India is very significant or not. So, here the question is about the significance of the role of president in our country. So significance of president. Now what I want to tell you here is regarding the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers is headed by the Prime Minister, and the Constitution itself provides under Article 123 and in various other provisions of the Constitution that the President of the country, the President has to deliver his duties according to the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, which means that the President has to abide by the aid and advice given by the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers will recommend to the President, and whatever the Council of Ministers do recommend, the President is bound to obey that. So that is why President is sometimes, I have seen in many places the President is being mocked as a rubber stamp, because the actual decision will be taken by the Council of Ministers and the President is bound to act according to the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And that's why the role of President seems to be lesser significant in India. But there are some provisions which makes the role of President powerful. And we must understand here that we are following a parliamentary system, not a presidential system. In US, they have a presidential system. In India, we have a parliamentary system where Parliament is given the sovereignty. Now, Parliament also, even though the Parliament is a union of all the legislators, it is the Council of Ministers who run the government. Okay, so that is to be understood. Okay, I hope this is clear for you. Next, we will discuss about the Vice President. Vice President holds the second highest office in the country. So, second highest office is held by the VP or the Vice President. Okay. He is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. So, Vice President is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. So, automatically the chairman of Rajya Sabha becomes the Vice President or vice versa. The powers and the functions are similar to those of Speaker of Lok Sabha. So, if we talk about the powers and the functions of the Vice President, so Vice President is basically the chairman of Rajya Sabha. So he has powers and functions similar to that of the Speaker of Lok Sabha. Okay. Next, the Vice President also acts as the President when a vacancy occurs in the office of President due to resignation, removal, death or otherwise. So, whenever the office of the President is vacant, whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the President, then the Vice President will act as the President. That means Vice President becomes the acting President. So, till the new President is elected or due to any reasons, if the President is not holding the office, then the Vice President of the country holds the office of the President. Abhi Kumar, why India is mentioned as state or union in Constitution, not as a country? So, in the Constitution, why it is mentioned as a union is because of the process of integration. Now, when we got the independence, when the Constitution was framed, there were many princely states. So, there were around or more than 500 princely states were there. So, I think it was 565. I don't remember the exact number, but it's 500 plus. So, there were many princely states and it was a very tedious process to bring all these princely states to become a single union. Okay. So, this task of integrating the states or the princely states into the Union of India, it was taken up by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel had taken up this responsibility. Now, why it is mentioned as a state? State means government, okay? It means government. And why it is called a union? Why? Because of this integration process. Because all these princely states were brought together, they were integrated into the single union. So, that is why we call it as a union, okay? I hope it's clear for you. Any other doubts from this? Next, we will discuss about the Prime Minister. I will try to finish the Union Executive today itself. Okay. Next is the Prime Minister. So, Prime Minister is a real executive authority. Now, who is the nominal executive? It's the President. So, nominal executive is President, whereas the real executive is the Prime Minister. So, the real powers are exercised by the Prime Minister. Real powers are exercised by the Prime Minister. Now, President appoints the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. So, the majority party in the Lok Sabha, the leader of that party will be appointed as the Prime Minister. So, our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, he is the leader of BJP, which is the majority party in Lok Sabha. So, in the Lok Sabha or in the lower house where the direct elections are held, so where the direct elections are held in the Lok Sabha, the majority party which wins the election, the leader of that party will be chosen as the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister is appointed by the President. Okay. Now, the Prime Minister is the chairman of the Planning Commission. Now, we don't have a Planning Commission. Now, we only have the NITI Aayog. Then, he is also the chairman of the National Development Council, National Integration Council, Interstate Council, National Water Resources Council, etc. So, the Prime Minister is the chairman of all these councils. Now questions. Then why not amend and term as country? Why? Because in India we have that system of union. That means different. Even now we have a federal system where the states come together. We have a system where the states are coming together to form the union. That's why still we are continuing with this term itself, union itself. Now, Pooja has commented yes. Now, Abhi Kumar, what if president on foreign tour, vice president does take president chair? No. If it's a very long gap and all, definitely vice president. And now, you asked me this question. If president is on a foreign tour, normally the vice president doesn't. But if there is any emergency that the duty has to be delivered by the president, then definitely vice president will do that. Now, automatically, when does the vice president take up the role of a president is when there is a instance of death of the president, or when the president has resigned or has been impeached. In all these situations, there is no other option but the vice president will act as the president until the new president is elected. Now, if the president is on a foreign tour, then that must be something related to the duties of the president, his official thing or something. So, normally the vice president does not automatically become powerful as the president or automatically take up the post of the president. But normally what happens, if there is any emergency, any ordinance has to be promulgated in the absence of the president. So, in such situations, definitely the vice president will do. Okay. Now, we will also discuss about the Council of Ministers. This is the last component of our Union Executive. So, Council of Ministers means the council of all the ministers that we have. So, COM or the Council of Ministers, it's headed by the Prime Minister. So, Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. So, headed by Prime Minister, the COM is the real executive authority in our politico-administrative system. So, it is the Council of Ministers who is the real executive authority in the politico-administrative system of our country. Okay. Now, Article 74. Article 74 deals with the status of the Council of Ministers. So, the status of Council of Ministers is so the status of the Council of Ministers is expressed, or it's described in Article 74, whereas the Article 75, it deals with the appointment, tenure, responsibility, qualification, oath, salaries and allowances of the ministers. So, the provisions given to the ministers are discussed under Article 75. A person who is not a member of either house of the parliament can also become a minister, but he cannot continue as a minister for more than 6 months unless he secures a seat in either house of the parliament. So even though a person is not a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, he or she also can become a minister, but within 6 months he or she has to get the membership. Now I'll give you certain examples. For example, Nirmala Sitharaman, who is our finance minister. So she was not a minister first. She was not a member of any of the houses when she was first appointed. Later, she became a member of the Rajya Sabha. And another example is Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was also our former Prime Minister. So he is also a Rajya Sabha member who became a member after becoming the minister. So any person can become a minister if the majority party or the Prime Minister decides to. But within 6 months, he or she has to get a membership in either of the houses of the parliament. Okay. So this is about the Council of Ministers, and with that we have come to an end of the Union Executive. Tomorrow we will take up Union Legislature. Now Abhi Kumar, what if President wants to resign? So if the President wants to resign, he can resign by giving the resignation to the Chief Justice of India. So he can write to the Chief Justice of India regarding his resignation, and until a new President is appointed, after resignation, the Vice President will act as the President or the acting President. So that is it about the resignation. So any other doubts or anything else to be clarified? I hope no. So that's all for today. We will meet again tomorrow, same time, 8 o'clock. Okay. So tomorrow also the same time, 8 o'clock. So please go through the notes that you have written now, and do revise them and come and ask me questions and doubts tomorrow before we start the session. So we will wind up for now for today. Take care and study well. And do not forget about the change dates of the examination, 11th of November for the computer science. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like the video, please do share it with your friends also. Thank you so much.